I have seen Cobra Kai Season 6 Part 1, and I have thoughts. Just to get everybody up to speed, I have reviews with my thoughts on the first 5 seasons. I managed to binge them all throughout the past couple of weeks, and I'm ready to once again enter the world of the Miyagi-verse one last time. So they split up Season 6 into 3 parts. Part 1 is 5 episodes in July. Part 2 is 5 episodes in November. And then the last 5 episodes will be sometime in the spring of 2025 before next year's Karate Kid movie comes out. Now, I was excited to be back in this world. I was excited to see where they were going to go with the World Martial Arts Tournament. I was excited to just revisit these characters. Although I will say that Cobra Kai Season 5's ending, if it wasn't for the already teased Sekai Taikai tournament, in many ways, Season 5 could have been the finale of the show. If you wrote a little bit around it and closed some more loops, it could have been the end of the show there. But this season's going to be the true ending, as all of the kids are going to probably be graduating high school in this episode, even though the actors are far going into their late 20s here, and we're going to get to see them compete internationally. Now, when it came to this season, again, happy to be back in the world, but I will say that this is, to me, the weakest opening episodes to a season we've had yet. I thought the 2-part Mexico saga in the previous season was a little bit weird. It was almost like a side story, the way it was kind of written. On this season, I felt like there was a lot that was sort of padding things out. I'm not sure if they planned 10 episodes and then had to stretch them out, but there were parts that really felt like they were taking up a lot of time. So the comedy was still good. I still love the characters. They've done a great job of getting these characters over, but I can't help but notice there's a lot of problems with writing in this season. It feels like they're trying to wrap things up, and because of that, they're doing some strange decisions. For example, I'll give you an example. John Krese escaping prison, like doing a prison break in the real world would be, almost impossible nowadays. But in this world, it happens, and he doesn't just get caught. Are there not cameras at every corner in this alternate universe? Maybe I'm overthinking it, but I find it weird that somehow Krese gets out of prison at the end of season 5 and then hops on a plane and goes to Korea. And it feels like some time passed for sure, because there's no mention of Terry Silver as far as anything with him getting out, even though I do think we're going to see him later on in this season. He wasn't in these 5 episodes, but I do think we're going to see him because he's got lawyers and money. He won't be locked up for long. But Krese getting all the way to Korea, and then the other one that blew my mind that I didn't even think was even possible, right, is the fact that Kim Da-win is alive. That is to say, the master, the original master, Master Kim, the one that taught Krese and Terry Silver those ancient arts, is still alive. He was a grandfather when they were young. How is this man still alive? I mean, he must be in his 70s. Now, here's where it does make sense, because there is something here you have to understand. You have to understand that in this world of Cobra Kai, this is basically at this point just an homage to all of the classic Kung Fu Shaw Brothers films. In those movies, you had men that were over 100 years old doing crazy stunts, crazy martial arts. The realism is out the window. This show is now a tribute to 80s action movies as well as Hong Kong flicks. And if you're into that stuff, this shouldn't bother you at all. If you were expecting the series to go back to how it was in the first season where it was serious, that ship has sailed. Now this has become Kung Fu schlock, and because I grew up with it, I love it. I am perfectly fine with it. Yes, it's weird to see him return. It's weird to have Krese end up over there. At this point, we're literally in cartoon territory. Like, this might as well be the cartoon, the Karate Kid cartoon, which is apparently not canon to the Miyagi-verse. So in case you were wondering, even though there is an Easter egg, I'm thinking in season 2, right? I think there was an Easter egg there for it. So that one story is obviously Cobra Kai being established, and they spent most of episode 3. We spent a lot of that time learning about the Cobra Kai students that have been training in Korea. And these are going to be the new antagonists for this season. These very, very dangerous fighters that are learning the hardest way to train. Meanwhile, the other things kind of going on is that basically the good guys, Daniel, Chosen, and Johnny Lawrence, they are preparing for the tournament, but the tournament has some restrictions in that you can only take 6 team members to Barcelona. So they pick their team members. There's some shenanigans early on with like Kenny having a confrontation with Robby, and then it sort of leads into him joining Cobra Kai. I thought just a pep talk from his brother again to rejoin. To be honest, it did feel like lazy writing. It did not feel earned. Again, I am not saying I did not love this show, but I'm just being critical of little nitpicks that I see with this season. I think that historically, people are going to look at this and do essays on it on this show, and I think they're going to point out that this season was probably the right season to end the series on, because at this point, after this big tournament and this build-up and all the twists and turns with the characters, there isn't much else they could do at this point. They could always come back years down the road and do like a sequel series, like sort of like a sequel to the sequel of Karate Kid, where at this point Daniel's way too old, maybe he's Miyagi's age, and at this point it becomes more about the kids of this show becoming their own masters. They can revisit that down the road. Without question, that could be a future Netflix show. But when it comes to this story that they've been building with, really it's about John Krese and Johnny. If you really break it down, these other kid characters are B plots. This story begins with Johnny Lawrence and it ends with Johnny Lawrence. And I believe, I'm telling you right now, my prediction for the ultimate finale of this series is that I think that Krese is going to eventually show his love for Lawrence. I think he may end up getting locked up in prison. There's even a chance he might die this season. But before that character's written out, he's going to show Johnny that he loves him. The last episode of season 6 coming out next year is called Ex-Degenerate. And it's being written by Josh Heath, John Hurwitz, and Hayden Schlossberg, who are the creators of the show. So they're actually hunkering down to write the final 3 episodes. I'm sorry, the final episode, the 3 of them. So I think that's where we're going with this. I think that eventually, unlike Terry Silver being a nut job, and we may even see Krese versus Terry Silver this season. We may even see that at the end. Remember I said that, folks. But I can notice that the writing this season, it does feel like they don't have much for the characters. Like some of the characters, it in a way, it does feel like we're going backwards too. We're seeing another fight with Samantha and Tori to see who the leader's going to be. But then, there's a twist there because we find out that Tori's mom passes away in the show. And that, to me, I think that did a lot for the audience having empathy and sympathy for Tori. This is why Krese as a master got into her head, because she did have a mother, but she lost her mother. She was emotionally vulnerable, and that's what led to her picking going back to Cobra Kai, because she probably felt most comfortable with Krese. Even though she rejected him, she probably felt most comfortable, probably because she realized that as long as she was with Miyagi-Do, they probably weren't going to have her, like she even says it in the show, like the foreshadowing is here. She probably feels like she'll never get one over on Samantha because that is the daughter of Daniel. I mean, it's just, it's a blood relationship, and Tori's not blood related to any of them. So, that was good for that character. And the other big storyline this season is the story. There's a lot of storylines going on. There's obviously Johnny still preparing for his baby. They do a gender reveal. It's a daughter. But the other big storyline that I think is going to carry the season forward is the secret of Miyagi. They find this box, and it turns out that Miyagi's life was a lot shadier than people had thought. Daniel, Chosen, and Johnny go on this sort of mission to find out. And I think Amanda was with them too. They go on this mission to find what really happened, and this sort of dark side to Miyagi's life that kind of cripples Daniel emotionally, because it's a side of Miyagi he never knew about. He knew this man since he was a child. He was one of his best friends, easily a mentor, a father figure to Daniel, the father figure to Daniel, and Daniel thought that he knew him, not knowing there was this whole ass past. Now, I thought that the chest they were going to open up, what I assumed is that it was going to reveal pictures of Miyagi and Julie from the next Karate Kid, introducing her to Daniel, leading to her making her appearance in one of the later parts of season 6. I thought they were going to leave that as the teaser, but that is not what they did. Instead, they are revealing that Miyagi actually at one time in the past fought in the Sekai Taikai. He also committed crimes, and everybody around Daniel is trying to tell him, like, look, this does not mean he wasn't a great man. It just means that he came, that he made mistakes. It's no different than Johnny Lawrence. It's no different than anybody. And the thing is, Daniel is so sort of like shook, because this is like his hero worship gone out the window, but it actually, to me, is more powerful. I think it is more powerful that Miyagi had a dark side, because it shows growth. It shows that Miyagi wasn't just born a good guy who was always benevolent. It showed that he had to learn the value of being a good person. He had to learn the value of evolving as a man and not being a criminal. I actually think it adds more layers to Miyagi's character. I do have a feeling that some Karate Kid fans are going to be pissed about it, because a lot of fans don't like when characters are changed from the way fans perceive them. Like, for example, Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi. However, I don't think this is going to be a situation quite like that, because when it comes to Miyagi, all this is going to reveal is that his character arc, where he went from being criminal to being master of Daniel, happened before he ever met Daniel. And so that story of Miyagi going from criminal to benevolent master would be a phenomenal spin-off series to Cobra Kai. Think about that. You're not making Miyagi look bad. You're not ruining the character. It's actually going to show that the character had growth, but obviously because when we first met him in The Karate Kid, he was an old man. His story had already been told, so there could easily be a prequel series or a prequel movie. Maybe he had a run-in with Han at one point, because, Jackie Chan was around making movies like literally when Miyagi, like in the 80s, when Mr. Miyagi was first introduced to the world audience in The Karate Kid, and we see him kicking, Krese's ass, you understand? Jackie Chan was still making action movies. Don't forget that the Rush Hour series started in the 90s. So, the dude was still doing his thing. So, as far as like age goes, it could make sense that in this fictional world, Han and Miyagi had some kind of a backstory. That could be a premise they could introduce in the Karate Kid film coming out next year. But nevertheless, it shows that there's potential for them to do a lot more with the Miyagi character, and for Daniel to come to terms with the fact that the Miyagi that he met was the best version of the man. The man at that time was the best version of himself. And let's not forget the whole backstory in the Karate Kid film about his wife and, the pain he went through. There's a lot to explore there that could make its own series. A lot. They could do a spinoff of several characters of this show. So the issue is that the show does feel at this point like we're kind of in a hamster wheel. Most of these episodes were training episodes with some comedy mixed in, and the storylines that I was talking to you about. But they did end by finally going to Barcelona, which I wasn't expecting to see till part 2. But they are already, at the end of episode 5, they end up going to Barcelona for the Sekai Taikai. And the big twist at the end is that Tori appears and is once again in Cobra Kai. So that means we may see another Tori and Samantha fight, which has been the feud of the series. I mean, look, man, I ain't a sexist. It doesn't matter the gender, dude. This is the top feud of the series. Even Robby and Miguel have theirs, but even they've made peace. This, I think, is going to continue. I do think they're going to end up being friends by the end of everything. and it's almost teased in these episodes. We saw a lot of it in these episodes, but they're going to be fighting again because she went home to where she feels comfortable, and that's going to be another twist of the character arc that she had, I guess that you could say, a heel turn. Remember how in the last season when Penis Breath left, and that's something else too. Let me get to that. Penis Breath turned on them, and then, he said, what was he said no more heel turns. Yeah, right, not in this show. But now he's all of a sudden in, and that's it. Like, he was forgiven for everything. Again, like, one of the issues with this show is that characters do really bad things and betray others, and they're forgiven a little bit too easy. Now, I'm all for forgiveness. I'm all for it. But it does kind of feel like a lot of these characters maybe should earn it a little bit more. I don't know. That's just me. I think they could do a better job of that. Penis Breath comes back, and they just say, okay, come back in. No more heel turns. Do you really trust him? Do you really trust him? That's the question. So, anyways, Cobra Kai Season 6 Part 1. I'm still invested. I still love these characters, but it is time that the series winds down, at least for a while. Obviously, I'm not saying they can't come back and do movies and reunite the cast down the road, but this part of their lives is coming to an end, and they've already got the makings for it to be a great finale, as now they're tested against the best in the world. And they've already been teasing in interviews that some of these fights are ridiculously over the top to new levels. We're talking about high level martial arts. So I'm really wondering how far they can take it, considering that season 5 we had a sword and a sci fight. I mean, there was just a ton of stuff there. Oh, and I also liked how Barnes became like an instructor, but he had his own method, like that little subplot. I hope we see more of Barnes in in the series as a trainer. And then also they somewhat expanded on Chosen and his storyline. Obviously, I think he's going to end up with the girl in Japan. It just seems like they're going in that direction. But that's kind of where he's going. I don't think we've seen the last of him either. I think that by the end of this show, everybody who's not really in the main lead, like for example, like Stingray, he's not really going to be used as much this season, or so we think. He might appear later on. There could be a lot of surprises still in store. I mean, and of course, the characters from the next Karate Kid, like Julie, and then the antagonists of that movie, I forgot what the hell their names were, but they could make a comeback. And yeah, I mean, there's a lot they can do. But they really, for part 2, they're going to have to start really cranking it up, because the last 5 episodes are going to be super, super important to make sure they stick the landing and end this series right. There's a lot riding on this, man. There's a lot riding on it. Anyways, take care. Have a good day. See you soon.